Hi everyone, and welcome to the July edition of the GlobalSake 1minTERNATIONal video series. This month, we're diving into one of the most important and often misunderstood aspects of going global: product global readiness and GeoFit. To unpack this, we're joined by two brilliant guests who bring complementary perspectives from global product infrastructure to local market alignment. First is Li-Min Pels, a localization veteran at Workiva. For over 3 years, Li-Min has architected a scalable localization solution covering automation, machine translation, and quality assurance to make global products truly launch-ready. Next is Francis James, the Director of International UX Research at Indeed. Francis specializes in tailoring product experience to local cultures, using UX insights to ensure products fits contextually in each market. So before we dive into the real-world stories, I'd love to start with some quick definitions from you. How would you personally define global readiness and GeoFit in the context of your work?
Thank you, Jelena. Yes, to me, global readiness is about ensuring our customer experience delight on our platform by, tailoring to their preferred language, culture, context, and local regulations. But true GeoFit goes a step further. It's by having the deep cultural empathy to understand subtle user preferences and behaviors that are always on a checklist. Ultimately, I think GeoFit is about moving beyond simple translation to achieve a genuine connection with our users and drive real sustainable market success.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me, Jelena. And to me, I think I largely agree with what Li-Min was saying before. I see global readiness as meaning that, you've done all the very basic work of getting the product ready for whatever market you're entering. So things like obviously localization, the language is there, you're in compliance with the local regulations, you have everything covered legally, etc. But then I think where GeoFit comes in is that you also really need to think about the cultural aspects as well, and the expectations and the customs or the habits of your local audience to make sure that your product is really going to fit into their life or into their workflow the way it does in whatever market that you're porting it from. And the features, the ways it works, etc., are kind of what the audience is used to, and it gives them an experience that they expect, right? Nothing's coming out of left field. They feel comfortable with it. And I think this is where product teams often fall short, is in going that last mile to fully understand the context and the local audience that they're designing for.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the amazing answer. Let's go a little bit deeper. From your experience, what are the key challenges you faced when trying to make a product truly global ready or GeoFit? What actions did you or your team take to address those challenges? And what are the outcomes and lessons learned from the experience?
Yeah, so when Indeed first launched here in Japan, we brought much of the UX and the existing features of the site and the app that we already had and that were working very well in the US and some other Western markets like the UK and other places in Europe. And we obviously, like I was saying, with the just getting all the basics ready, we had a lot of those. We had localized everything into Japanese. There's actually a lot of specifics required in Japan for what is necessary on a job listing. So we had done a lot of that sort of upfront work. But despite that, we were not seeing the performance that we did in the US or that we expected to see. So we were quite puzzled. We weren't sure what was going on. In the US, actually, one of our biggest problems is that employers tend to get overwhelmed with too many applications from job seekers. But we were seeing the opposite here. Our jobs just weren't getting many applies at all, and some literally got zero. So when I joined the team, this is a situation that I was coming into, and this was the big question, like what is happening here? We had some hypotheses, but we didn't really know for sure what was going on. So we set out to do some UX research to understand from the job seeker perspective what's going on. We wanted to learn how and why they were applying, how they decide which jobs they're interested in, what their kind of process is that they're going through as they're applying for jobs. And one other thing I'll say here is that I think I had a little bit of an advantage because I was coming from Indeed in the US, where I had started off as a researcher on the US job seeker team. So I kind of had a lot of knowledge and answers to this question of how it works for job seekers in the US to then be able to compare to what we saw here in Japan. And what came out of the study was that job seekers here in Japan really wanted to know more about any job they might be interested in before they felt psychologically ready to apply. So rather than sending in a bunch of applications to up their chances that they'd hear back from an employer, as we see in the US is a common habit amongst job seekers there. In Japan, job seekers really wanted to know a lot about the details of the job. So what is the environment like? Who will I be working with? What's their age and gender? Am I going to fit in? What train station is this, office close to? Do they have bike parking? These kinds of things. And we discovered that this process of applying is a little bit flipped on its head, right, than the US, where Japanese job seekers wanted to get these questions answered before they applied to make sure it was really going to be a good fit for them and they were going to be a good fit for the job. And whereas it happens a little bit in the opposite way in the US, where job seekers are doing the weeding out after they've sent out a bunch of applications. So now where we are with Indeed Japan, this was several years ago, and we've added on a lot more detail and information, even pictures and stuff to our job postings, which is also very common if you look at competitor sites here. So it wasn't really that novel, and there's a lot of other reasons, that we did all this stuff beyond just the research, but that was a key component to it. And we've seen our apply rates on the Indeed job board here go up a lot since we've added all of this information for our job seekers.
For us, it's kind of interesting. Actually, 3 or 4 years ago, at that time, we started our localization. And actually, at that moment, we already had a global customers and partners. And our biggest challenge was to move from a de facto global company to a purpose-built one. We had customers everywhere. So another challenge we faced was we need to align across all functions, all kind of content to drive a true, global strategy. But we all know true geo-fit takes time, money, and effort. And we needed to balance all these 3 things to make the right decision. So at that point, I was hired and along with my colleague, and we had to really drive this adaptive challenge from ground zero. Actions we took at that time is first to really define the top strategy, top goal. Our goal was to go to market fast, right? We had to provide a product that is internationalized, localized, so that our companies and users can use that. With that being in mind, we started our product localization. We scaled from English only to now 14 languages after 3 years. And then the second thing we had to do is to build a scalable, tech-enabled localization framework. When I say that is, we need to have a tech stack that is really, enabling for faster to market with all integrations, automations between the translation management system and our content management system. Another thing is we needed to secure the budget, right? The first year we had a fixed budget, and then year over year, we really need to be good at budget planning and then work with all stakeholders. The third thing is we actually are very much partner driven for our international markets. So we really need to look at our unique situation as a B2B company. We don't need to go too much deeper at first, but we need to have quality content out there. So with that in mind, we are a bit different from B2C company. So that way we need to be careful on the languages we support, and then drive quality from there. I think you have a question on outcome or lessons learned. We had a great outcome, right? We did pretty fast. Within 3 years. Our total revenue growed total revenue grew 17% from 2023 to 2024. That's when we started to do localization. Another thing is our international revenue grow from 25% of the total revenue to 35% within a year or so. So which is a huge success for us. But, for lessons learned is in order to go fast, we probably have some debt, right? Tech debt or internationalization debt. How do we continue to pursue through that, and so that we can deliver better experience for our international users? Another lessons learned is to have a global strategy with the company holistically. It's really important. That way we can align different departments, different content types to really deliver a holistic local experience for our users.
Okay, so let's move on to the next question. So sometimes a product can be technically global ready, but still fall flat in the market. Have you encountered a case where global readiness and geofit didn't align? What happened and how did your team respond?
But we did have one scenario when we go to Japan with our ESG solution. Now we call it a sustainability reporting solution. With that, it's really hard to go into Japan with that without some geofit marketing campaign, right? So with that, our marketing team hired an SEO agency. We designed a brand new landing page for that market.
Yeah, so I actually have an example of this from the Indian market, which I also work on, where we had learned from some of our past research that when hiring employers are searching for candidates in a resume database kind of a product, they were really used to picking up the phone and just calling those candidates that they were interested in right away. And there's several reasons for this, but one is that it's a lot quicker and easier to kind of gauge what kind of a person this candidate is if you can just get them on the phone really quick. And they're a lot of times moving very quickly, these employers, if they need to hire a lot of people. So we were coming up with ways that we were wanting to improve our resume database in the Indian market, and we wanted to add that ability. But we had the idea that, okay, if we could just let employers scan a QR code to make the call, we thought that would maybe be easier for them than having to transpose the phone number on the screen of their computer to the actual cell phone that they're calling from. And there would be less error in trying to make that call. So what actually happened though, when we did some research after we launched this, and again, it wasn't doing exactly as well as we thought it should, was that QR codes really aren't used that widely in the Indian market outside of payment systems. So they actually didn't know what to do with them on their screen. Even though, we had some instructions and stuff, but it just wasn't resonating with them. And then there were also some other reasons why they just wanted the actual phone number. For example, if the candidate didn't answer and they wanted to call them later, they wanted to have that phone number saved. They wanted the candidates also to be able to see that the number was coming from a company, a verified company, because otherwise they might not pick up. They might think it was a scam or something like that, which there is a lot of in India in general, but also in the job market as well. So my takeaway kind of from this experience is that, you can base your ideas for a feature or a product on solid research and have a great idea that you think will solve a problem, but you really also need to ensure that the way that you're executing that feature, the way that you've designed it and built it, is truly going to have that geo fit. And again, work really well for the audience that you're trying to solve that problem for.
So last question. So if you were advising a product team preparing to enter a new market, what's one thing they often underestimate, and what would you suggest they do to build both readiness and fit from the start?
I would say one thing is, a lot of times people think, oh, language is just translation, and just afterthought. I would totally, advise language is product, right? If you can have a product that it can expand multiple languages, that is a huge expansion for a product. So I would encourage the product team to expand with the language expansion within mind from the beginning, which means whether my product is really gathered international requirements, whether I have considered these regulations in this area for different markets, to user experience, right? When I design this, is this a global color that is recognized or preferred? Whether, this color or this design will be offending different cultures. With that, those considerations, which means gather international requirements for solutions or product, you will actually save a lot of money and effort and resources at the end, because without that consideration, you have to rework, redo, and you will waste more time to fix it. Remember?
Yeah, for Japan in particular, I think it really depends on the level of understanding that the team already has. So how much have they already invested in understanding the market and the audience? That could range hugely, right? So it's a little bit difficult to just give generic advice, because I would probably tailor my advice based on the answer to those questions. But if I was going to just say something, for anybody who wants to have their product work in Japan, I think it's really important actually to work with local partners. It's worth it to make sure that you're not just missing the obvious. I think the same thing that Li Ming was recommending from their Workiva experience launching in Japan, right? They worked with those local vendors to get a lot of that work done. Also take the time to see what your competitors are doing and what the norm is here. There's a lot of information that you can gather just from doing desk research and seeing what's out there and what exists in the market. And then, of course, I would recommend working with a local UX research expert or a team if you can find. There's plenty here. First of all, if you do have the time and the budget, do some exploratory research to really understand that audience more deeply in the context that you're trying to understand. So for us, that would be job search, but you may be building some financial product, right? Like, how do they bank? Where do they bank? What kinds of experiences are they used to, and why? That'll help you really, from the beginning, think deeply and understand how you might build a product that will work for the culture here, and then for the workflows and everything that they're going through. And then I would say, and this is even maybe quicker and cheaper potentially, is just show in research your early designs to users, right? See what they think about it. Do they understand it? Does it resonate with them? This doesn't have to be like pixel perfect or final flows, right? You can just show some early sketches to people and get a really good sense of like, this is something that might work. Of course, it needs refinement, or like we're going a little bit off here and we need to, work on it a little bit more. So, you just want to make sure that your offering is understood and again, will resonate with the Japanese audience and really provide the value that you think that you're offering to the audience.
Thank you for the helpful and practical suggestions. I personally learned a lot as well. So thank you both for sharing your insights and experiences from different lenses. What really stands out is the global success doesn't just come from technical preparation. It comes from deep local understanding and international product adaptation. So to everyone watching, we hope this sparked ideas for how you can think globally, act locally, and build products that truly connect. See you next time.